hear a train a-comin', it's rolling round the bend. I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when, but I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps rolling down San Antone.
Yes, thankfully, I did turn it off. This is a speaker that's been getting a lot of buzz on my channel because they're saying it's another. How many boombox killers have we had since the Boombox 1? Every other speaker was a boombox killer. The Boombox 2, the Boombox 3. We're still saying, but this really is the Boombox killer. We've had a lot of speakers that can get close. Certainly, you can beat the Boombox 3 for value. This is another one from W-King. A speaker that I talk about as having, as a general rule for W-King, it seems to be like what I call a playground, fun, go outdoors, party, kind of, but maybe for the younger crowd pleasing, because they don't do deep bass. There has not been a W-King speaker that I've heard that does proper deep bass. So they're big bass, but they're big upper bass, sometimes, if you're lucky, mid bass, but they always give you good value. The one exception to the rule was the WKing T11 because it had almost no bass, but it had a lovely spread of stereo sound with lots of detail. And you could have a serious listen as long as you didn't want deep bass. But we do get great value, and this is a speaker that you're telling me, I said, they said, it could be a Boombox 3 killer, and I said, could it really be a Boombox 3 killer? Because the number of speakers that have come along so far, you'd think it'd be well dead. 20 feet under the ground, we'd never see the Boombox 3. Not one of those extremely priced JBL speakers again. Well, this is the attractively named. We talk about its tap value. Do we? Yeah, well, plumbers do. Tap value. You can really play a tune on this one. It's a proper metal grill. I nearly said gorilla. And it's what I call an industrial design. There's nothing pretty about this W-King. Even to the back, you can hardly see where it says W-King. They've handily painted it there. So on paper, 120 watts, is that, well actually, yes, 120 watts RMS, they say, but they also say 150 watts peak. And if it was doing 150 watts peak, I would not expect it to do 120 watts RMS. But there you go, those are the specs. And it's another one of those, do you want to have a three-way? We all say, yes, let's do it. Because it's got twin tweeters, a single subwoofer, and two mid woofers or mids, sort of lower mid, whatever. Well, woofers and a subwoofer. Normally you stick a subwoofer in and you're thinking 50 hertz and down. Of course they play higher, but certainly with the Boombox 3, it wasn't a subwoofer in the traditional, we'll have a separate subwoofer and really slam the noise to the neighbours sort of thing. So it's a three-way speaker. Nice. On paper, it's got 120 watts RMS. That promises a lot of sound. The only thing here is, it's got that's 115 millimeter woofer. Let's call it a subwoofer. Is that really going to shake the floor? And it's a W-King speaker. Maybe the money's not on that. So it's an interesting design, and you've got millions and millions of features. Not least, we got karaoke. I did do the karaoke there. I just wanted to demonstrate that you can have lots of fun outside of having a serious listen if you are an audiophile. But hey, maybe you've had a drink today and you're prepared to rock it with the rest of us. The rest of us non-self-declaimed audiophiles. But this is one of the most spitty mics. So this is a wireless mic. It does have an input for a wired mic. There's so many features, we're going to crack on. But just to say why, this is probably my least favourite karaoke speaker. It's very spitty. Sibilant, Peter, Piper, picked a piece of pickled pepper. It's going to annoy. You do that at a party. I think it's going to annoy people. But hey ho, the feature's there. Not just as the feature is there. You got dials. You got dials that you can twist and turn, and you can select lots of different things. What can you select, Al? Well, so you've got your master volume. By the way, for some reason it goes up to 30, not 100. But anyway, that is not in sync with the phone. So if you want to max out and just use your phone, remember to max out the volume on the speaker itself. But hey ho, you do have the ability, and I know a lot of you do like that, to individually tailor the sound via both your device and the speaker itself. We're talking about what these rotary dials do. So we've got the master volume. You can, what they say, you can go -6 to +6 decibels with the separate treble, separate bass. Start doing that and treble. Get onto that in a minute. That may not be exactly spot on. You can individually, when you do your karaoke, do the echo. And as spitty as it was, I hardly had any echo on there. You've got a separate dial for the mic volume. Then you've got mic treble, mic bass. You've got lots of, what I would say, party features. Nothing to do with having a serious listen, but certainly to do with having lots of fun. And you've got a separate guitar volume. And then you get your master volume on the back. Lots and lots of features. We've got a mic input. We've got a guitar input. You can use a USB dongle. You can use a micro SD card. You've got what they call the live input. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but I'll tell you what they say. Live streaming. When you go live on the internet, you can plug in the live cable to your phone and play music on the outdoor speaker. The sound will play in your live stream like background music. The microphone output can also mix with the background music. So I don't know exactly how, but just know there's a separate one they call live. There's another input for monitor. So we've got basically a headphone amp. You can you plug your headphones in, and then you will only hear that. So anyone else, if you happen not to be near the device, you happen to want to plug it into here and not into your device, you can do that. You can monitor the music via the headphone amp, and indeed, that will mute the speaker itself. Then you've got just your normal auxiliary input in, and then your power. You've even got a remote. One of the features is you can record. So if you're playing karaoke and you've got your USB stuck in the back or your micro SD, it will record what you're actually doing. That can be handy. That can be a lot of fun. Of course, we've got our volume controls. We've got an equalizer. It has an indoor and outdoor mode. And so obviously the inputs, the music, play, pause, forward, and your power on there. We don't have any party lights. W-King don't really do party lights. It's funny, we've got millions of features. We even got effects.
Nope.
Yo. Oh, thank you very much. So you've got loads of effects that you can do straight off of the, basically you can control everything via the remote control that you can do on there. Even more so, if you're playing music straight off the device, you can actually literally go to a song that you want by the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. It will go to that equivalent track on your playlist on the round the back there. When you was telling me about this speaker, when you said, and I said what, and you said here's another Boombox 3 killer. It was about $190. Can't get it in the UK at the moment. $190. But when I looked this morning, that's written down, it was like $350. So that's going to change everything. Everything I say in here is about price. So I'm judging it at the $190, £160-ish mark, which is when I say I got it, I did pay for it. And do you know what? When I was hammering and hawing with W-King, would they send it? Because first of all, they say we don't sell it in the UK yet, and blah, blah, blah. So, well, people asking about it, I'd really like to get it, blah, blah. They actually refunded me. Yeah, well done, W-King, just to let you know. I didn't pay for it, but I did buy it originally, and then they refunded me when they said, oh, actually, we don't mind you doing it. Now we've had a look at your channel. I don't know how many times, I've had multiple contacts with W-King Boss, and they still talk about me as though I'm Mr. Nobody, and they just found out about me. Other things to mention before we get on with the video. Yes, I'm trying to make these quicker, but what can I do? It's got twin ports, but they're very little ports, but we've got twin ports, you know, ports kind of interchangeable with passive radiators, but of course, means you can't put it in a swimming pool. Obviously, it's going to fill up with water. There's no IP rating on this at all. Just know that. Anything else I've missed out? I guess the big deal here is what does it actually sound like? Because on paper, it could be a powerhouse. It's like was it 09 or whatever that speaker was, that kind of had the same configuration, and still an absolute classic, although I don't actually have it. You tell me it's an absolute classic. You know, it has the three-way system, where we have two tweeters, two woofers, and a subwoofer. The size does matter. Remember, that's 115mm. What does it promise? What does it promise? Only one way to find out. It doesn't promise me paradise for the rest of my life, but if we look at the frequency response, let's get a hint of what's to come.
massive upper and mid bass boost at lower volumes, 40% there. Still massive boost, 60%, leveling off by the time we hit 80%, where indeed 150 Hz down is basically limiting. By the time you hit 100%, it's actually quite flat. It's not actually a rolled off bass in terms of the bass it had. Noticeable is the 1.5 kHz big dip and a big gap, 5 kHz to 10 kHz, which probably is not great. Outdoor mode, pretty similar. Looks like it's doing the trick of going just a bit louder. Indeed, if we overlay them, as you can see, it simply goes louder by about 2.4 decibels at 60%, because if we overlay them, we can actually see the real difference once you get rid of the fact it just goes a bit louder. We've got a little bit of a bass reduction and a bit of a boost in the highs from say 2 kHz and up to about 10 kHz. Quick look at the drivers. You can see the port tuned around 65 Hz, so it's a mid-bass boost, and it's just where you'd want it, just as the subwoofer, they're calling it, is rolling off from around 85 Hz. Looks like the subwoofer is playing from basically 300 Hz down, and then the woofer takes over, or the twin woofers. Looks like they're playing 350 Hz to 5 kHz, and the tweeters 5 kHz and up.
So yes, it's a bit like going sailing. It's quite wavy. It's not going to be an audiophile speaker. We know that. That being unkind to W-King. Like I said, there's a particular tuning that we get with W-King. It's getting about a satisfying bass at a decent price, but we're not going to mess about with deep sub bass or anything like that. And it's not going to be in a particularly balanced sound, but we're going to give you lots of features and we're going to give you lots of value, and a lot of people do like the W-King brand. The takeaway there for me was, at the time you hit maximum volume, rather than a big drop in relative terms from the mids and the highs compared to the bass, it's leveling out. Actually looks quite level. And that could mean at 120 watts, if they're saying it's an RMS, could be something for a boombox 3 killer for loud volumes. So we've got the two modes. We've already seen, they keep doing it. They keep doing it to us. Even the U-Boom L, with everything you say about it, it still did it to us. What did it do to us? Oh, you turn it to the outdoor EQ and it just goes a bit louder. Yes, it does a little bit on other things, but it's slanting what it's really doing. To me, it kind of messes with the fact you could have one perfect EQ, but to get a difference between two EQs, to give it more features, you're losing out on both of them. So normalised, to hear what the actual difference is between indoor and outdoor mode, when we actually remove that trick, it goes about 2.5 decibels at most volumes louder.
Oh, tell me, do you feel the same like I do? Feel like I do. Feel like I do. You think about it, you feel the same. Tell me, do you? Oh, feel like I do. Oh, wish that things were different. Time didn't go slipping. Oh, tell me, do you feel the same like I do? Feel like I do. Feel like I do. You think about it, you feel the same. Tell me, do you? Oh, feel like I do. Oh, wish that things were different. Time didn't go slipping. Oh, tell me, do you feel the same like I do?
You know, the highs are a bit muted on this speaker, but I kind of prefer the indoor bass. I would like yet again the highs of the outdoor with the bass of the indoor mode, but you can't do that because they differentiated between the two, and almost pointlessly, because the biggest difference is the fact it just goes louder. But just know there's a bit off the bass and there's a bit on the highs, exactly what we come to expect from the modern day versions of these outdoor modes. So I'm going to go forward with the indoor mode because I think that's where it plays to its strengths by having the fuller bass, even though I think the highs are a little bit muted in that mode. And what are we going to compare it to? So against the W-King T11 seems to be one that you're most interested in hearing it against. It's also a karaoke speaker. It does have lights. I think I'll turn the lights off. It does normally have lights. Of course, we've gone live and We've got no lights. Oh, it's not coming back on. But normally it would have lights. I'm not sure if it comes on if I start playing music. But as I said, it's also a karaoke speaker, and actually I prefer the karaoke on the WKing T11. You'll see it's got twin woofers, but they are bigger woofers, and there's two of them. And we've got two tweeters. Obviously, we've got the subwoofer design, race round and racetrack, oval shape and all that, whatever they call it. Very, very fast. And we've got the unusual, but it's something that has been done before. Smaller, what we call them, mid woofers, with the tweeters right over the top of them, either side. So, the H10, the hand, you know, it looks like something quite industrial, sounds like something industrial. I don't know why they don't start coming out with, you know, that says, well, this is a boombox, and this says H10, I don't get it, T11, whatever. But the H10 versus the WKing T11.
Broken windows and a warning scribbled on my wall saying that you better turn around. Wouldn't be the first to try to burn me down. You're blue, you do. Would you love me at my worst? Kill the coffins in the dirt. Try to break me like a curse. You know that will never work. I'm a little bit absurd. Dancing on the verge. Anyone can love a pretty little mansion, but could you love her? A haunted, haunted house. Oh, could you love me now? A haunted house. If you're just a haunted house. A haunted, haunted house. If you're just a haunted, haunted, I'm a haunted house. Could you love her? A haunted, haunted house. Oh, could you? A haunted, haunted, haunted. I'm a haunted house. A haunted, haunted house. If you're just taking sides. A haunted, haunted. I'm a haunted house.
Said the highs are a bit muted on this. They are a bit muted. This does sound sharper and clearer, but it also sounds narrower. This has a better spread of sound. Vocals actually are well projected, even though I'm saying the highs are a bit muted. This absolutely, you know, dominates to a huge extent. It's almost Tyson Fury in the heavyweight world. Of course, the great UK heavyweight boxing champion. It dominates the mids and the upper bass in that fashion, but then you get deeper bass, 65 hertz and down on the WKing T11. Remember, twin 133mm woofers. There's a single 115mm woofer on there, so it is a win in terms of the deep bass for WKing T11. They do sound quite different. You may like one or the other. If you prefer the upper bass, and a lot of you do, you're going to prefer the sound of this. But then the highs are a bit muted. Okay, what about? I mean, if it's not a win there, what are we expecting against the JBL Boombox 3? The one you're telling me it potentially kills.
I beg, steal, and borrow. I'm taking all the love from the world. I'm taking all the love from the world, but I can't seem to find it. I'm looking so I can feel better.
So playing the same track, all 3 speakers overlaid, the Boombox 3 with its big 700 Hz peak, and it does have the biggest peak, 4 kHz and up, along with the biggest in terms of the deep bass. But the H10 completely dominates upper bass and mid bass. It just doesn't have any deep bass. And the T11, the bass, something in between the two, and its peaks dominating around 1.5 kHz and 3 kHz.
So for me, you know, it hasn't killed the JBL Boombox 3, and it's not even badly wounded, to be fair. And a lot of it is going to come down the price. As I said, $328, and I think they're starting to do deals now on the Boombox 3, I'm seeing. When I last checked, $374. There's almost the same in price. I don't know what's going on with these prices. I'm picking it off of Amazon, Amazon USA. And as I said, but there are other times when this is over $400. It's still 450 quid, by the way, in the UK. But and it was like that was $190. So normally the price of this seems to be less than half of that. But strangely, when I last checked this morning, there was almost the same. So for me, you know, given that fact, even if it was half the price, that's a better listen, and it's got the deep bass. You know, it's still the deep bass king, really. I would have to say, if it's about the deep bass, you know, it's at the cost of some upper bass. Depends what kind of a sound you're looking for. It has that very mid-focused 700 hertz peak, which as you go up the volume scale. And by the way, this has massive boosts, massive adjustment, whatever you want to call it, for bass at the lower volumes. So it's even more. I did that at 60%, but this would sound more bass heavy at lower volumes. As you push the volumes on the Boombox 3, and especially if you're playing even out sort of tracks, I'm saying a lot of you guys who just play your electronic music, I know I'm using that for testing. I'm trying to have. I've explained it many times, but in the real world, a lot of those tracks have a downward slant, so a 700 hertz peak would fit that kind of music pretty well, because it would just fill it out to what sounds normal to your ears. But for so-called, you know, audophiles that are playing your real instruments and that sort of thing, then that will become annoying, because it will start shadowing everything else. So headroom, maximum volume. I said potentially on paper, this looked like it could be a maximum volume boy. So that may be where it really comes into its own, just as the T11 did. These speakers now that we're getting from W-King, or I'm getting, are not reducing bass as much as these others do from 80%. That's actually leveled off, and it's not. And the relative bass is actually not reduced. So. Maximum volume, maximum headroom, all 3 speakers compared for who goes the loudest. Maximum volume, and the H10, it's an annihilation really.
up until, well, 55 hertz. And then, yeah, the Boombox 3 does have the most in terms of deep bass. But in terms of overall volume and impact, slam dunk for the W-King H10, 4 decibels louder overall than the Boombox 3, 2.7 decibels louder overall than the T11, and similar in the dominance of its peaks. Dominates the bass overall, just loses out to the other two in terms of the deep bass, which it does not do. But if it's all about going loud, only one winner here. It's the W-King H10.
Wow, 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 it's not close. And do you know what? Finally, I said it didn't kill the... I said it didn't even badly wound the Boombox 3. But at maximum volume, it gives it the kick-in of its life. Waves goodbye as it goes off in an ambulance. So, it's a massive win. If it's about playing at maximum volume or near maximum volume, and about going loud and still having some bass, no deep bass, that still has more deep bass. I think even the WKing T11's got more deep bass at maximum volume, even though they don't go anywhere near as loud. But this still has its mids, mid bass, upper bass. So as long as that's okay with you, that's an absolute win in terms of keeping the party going. It was in indoor mode, that was in default mode. I don't mess about with the EQ there, and that's also in its indoor mode. So these are the bass heavy modes. These are for me, you know, unless you really need to go on the screechy modes where it counts, and it tells us the actual headroom before they start pushing beyond boundaries. Talking about pushing beyond boundaries, I did say, they say it's got, you can go plus or minus on the bass, plus or minus 6 decibels on the bass and the treble. Well, I didn't test it that way. When I tested it, you get about, at most, 2 decibels more in terms of the bass, and maybe a little bit more in terms of the treble. It's not a game changer, and to some ears that will be quite subtle. There's enough in the treble that adding it will make a difference in the clarity. The problem I had is even tinkering with it a little bit, certainly with the bass, you're straight into distortion. I'm not saying this plays clean in any way, but it's okay for me, for people who are likely to buy it. But as soon as, even for me, and I can put up with a reasonable amount of distortion. I'm not one of those ultra sensitive to that. As long as it's doing everything else I need, and it's worth getting a little bit of distortion because I haven't got an alternative listener handy. But you go straight into annoying distortion. So I'm not messing with the EQ, but I'm saying let's see how much fun we can have, and just to show you how much difference it makes, I will compare default mode indoor versus plus 6 decibels, they call it, but it isn't, and plus on the treble. But we'll do something else. I will remove the cover, because for me, removing the cover is the biggest free upgrade you can do on this speaker. Not something I normally recommend, because normally taking the speaker off would damage it, and taking the grill off would damage it in some way, either the grill or the speaker, and you'll have trouble selling it again on eBay. But this is the easiest grill I've come across to remove and put back on with no sign of damage, no evidence of your grime. So I would say your biggest upgrade to this speaker will be take the grill off. It will really open up the sound. You won't measure, well, I try to measure the difference. There isn't a big difference to measure. It does alter the highs, but the difference is far greater to your ears. So showing you the limits of the speaker, plus 6 treble, plus 6 bass, grill off versus plain vanilla default mode.
Cause it's electric, the way you touch me, and the vibrations set me free. It passes through me, the way you touch me, it's the way true love should be. Finally your touch touches my skin. Finally I feel you give in. Finally you touch me again. You touch me, you touch me again.
Definitely adds a dollop of fun, and as long as you're not, according to what you're playing at the time and what volumes, although for me it was distorting even at medium volumes. You may want to play it like that. As I said, the first thing you want to do is take that grill off, because that's an easy mod with no, for me, was no risk of damage at all, putting it back on and taking it off multiple times. Yes, you will get more bass, but to me that's quite subtle. It's about 1 to 2 decibels at most volumes, and by the time you get to maximum volume, it's exactly the same as playing it at maximum volume without going +6. So it's not a free lunch. But the trouble is, compared to going to full 100%, pushing the treble gives you a little bit more in the highs. Just know that if you want to mess with those, but you certainly does add $1 per fun, and taking the grill off changes the whole game. There is the elephant in the room, the one we didn't speak about, because normally that would be the one to compare it to at the prices, but the prices have been all over the place. Last I checked for the Encore, $239. So depending on when you catch it, cheaper or not cheaper than the H10, tweeters and what's it got? Yeah, it's got the tweeters and the big woofer, because it's only a small subwoofer at the end down this one. So that's the value, but we'll talk about battery in a minute. So how does it compare? Balls out, right? Balls are out, gone +6, everything, and we've taken the grill off against what has been the value champion for people wanting a party with deep bass, the JBL PartyBox Encore. Not the Essential, the Encore.
Cause it's electric, the way you touch me, and the vibrations set me free. It passes through me, the way you touch me, it's the way true love should be. Finally your touch touches my skin. Finally I feel you give in. Finally you touch me again. You touch me again.
It is another speaker that does karaoke, and for me that mic was very directional, but I would say in terms of enjoying karaoke on these speakers, so I went for the T11 followed by the Encore, because for me that mic is just, you can't, it's just in any way having a serious sing song, you can't, it's too spitty, even when you turn the echo down. I mean, that's quite directional, that's the problem, but that worked pretty well. But it didn't come with a mic, by the way. I tried to use a plug-in mic, and these two are with wireless mics. So yeah, I think they are very different. I will say, for me, it's a win for the Encore, because I like deep bass. So, I mean, that does deep bass and that doesn't. It's as simple as that. But the sound is narrower, and when you go balls out, it does sound clearer. Yes, you can push the treble in the EQ with that if you want. So you're going to have to talk about all the other features, you know, and the multiple ways you can use this, playing off the device and all that. So we'll come down to all the other features, not least even has a remote control. So have a quick overview of the features. Just as I already, at $190 or 160 quid, it's decent value. It will go really, really loud. By the way, the Encore will go similar volumes as the Boombox 3. So it will also stomp all over the Encore. And the really, really big win for the, you can't even see it there. It's over here, mate. It's over here. For the H10 is the battery. It's got the biggest battery of any speaker I've tested. Well, in the specs, if that's real, 81 watt-hours compared to 27 watt-hours. So if it's about going loud and going on the party, outdoors, as long as you don't put it anywhere near the pool, it's not IP rated at all, it's going to keep going a lot longer than the Encore, albeit it will go a lot louder, and that, of course, will sap it. But in terms of a proper battery, 81 watt-hours is huge. 27 watt-hours for the Encore, 70 watt-hours for the Boombox 3, 56 watt-hours for the... I don't know why they have to put these little batteries in. They're just protecting, obviously, the cells of the other speakers, because how much does the battery cost to put in a little bit bigger? The worst of the lot, of course, is the Harman Studio range, but we won't get into that. So in the prices, when I last checked, and their prices are all over the place, £449, $374 Boombox 3, £299, $239 the Encore, £155, $200 for the T11, and the H10, $160, $190, 160 quid. All SBC, obviously. Bluetooth, all fine plus. All do stereo, true wireless stereo pairing, but the Boombox 3 will also do the old party boost trick of 100 plus speakers if it's ever been done. In terms of charging, none of them will have the handy USB-C. The Boombox 3 does mains, the Encore does mains, and the T11 is a barrel charger, and the H10 is a barrel charger. The T11 and the H10 have a mic input, but they all have, woohoo, because they're all, well, even the Boombox 3, they all have auxiliary input, can all be used as a power bank. And there's another big win, 81 watt hour battery as a power bank. As a power bank alone, that is pretty spanking value. Only the W-Kings will let you play straight off a micro SD card, and a USB dongle indeed for dongle. I've already got problems with neighbours. Has it got the USB dongle? I can't remember if you can play off that. Yeah, it also has a USB, so I think both of them are USB dongle, play your tracks as well. Only the WKing T11 normally does lights. I don't know why it didn't do it now. Having said that, of course, the JBL Encore also has lights, party lights. It's a party boost, party box speaker. In terms of, we ignore, I do the loudest test, and that's what you want to know how loud it goes. In terms of the specs, if you care, they say, well, we know 80 watts. Well, they claim 100 and something silly watts. I mean, we know that's about 80 watts on AC, 60 watts on battery. The Encore, 100 watts RMS, they say. T11, 100 watts. And the H10, 120 watts. In terms of the weight, they're all big buggers. And the lightest of the lot is the WKing T11, 5.1 kilo. It's just, I said 5,100 grams, and I've got 5,132 grams. So all intents and purposes, WKing T11 and the H10 weigh the same compared to the 6.3 kilos of the Encore and the 6.7 kilos for the Boombox 3. Only the Boombox 3 is IP7 rated. Drop it in water, you're still sorted. 1 meter of water for 30 minutes, whereas it's only IPX4, kind of splashy proofy on the Encore. IPX6 a little bit better for the T11, but no IP rating at all for the H10. In terms of those drivers, for the Boombox 3, two 81mm woofers, two 20mm tweeters, 189mm subwoofer. The Encore, 133mm subwoofer, whatever, 245.5mm. We're saying tweeters, it could be almost full range at that size. 11 is 133mm woofers, 230mm tweeters, 115mm so-called subwoofer, and two 70mm woofers and two 25mm tweeters. They do all have tweeters. In terms of latency, the T11 was the best at 66 milliseconds. That's pretty good. But unfortunately, the Boombox 3, 100 milliseconds. I'm testing on YouTube. Encore, 100 milliseconds, and 150 milliseconds for the H10 is not good. I could not recommend it for streaming in that way. But when it comes to auxiliary, if you're using these for DJing in any way, no lag on either of the W-King speakers. That's absolutely brilliant at 0 milliseconds. It's just 17 milliseconds for the Encore, 25 milliseconds. It's kind of usable, but we don't like any lag at all. For the Boombox 3, of course, the JBLs have an app. No app for the WKing T11. What are we in? 30 watts. I keep thinking, I'll get it down to 5 minutes one day, and by the time I get up the table, it's been an hour. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to go and edit. It's been another seven days on that. And by the time you get it, you'll just say it's too long anyway. Thank you, goodbye, because most people watch for about 5 minutes. Hey ho, such is life. Things could certainly be worse. You got just be grateful for what you got, because it could always be worse. That's what I say. Sometimes I don't say that. Sometimes I say, I don't know what's going on. But could be positive. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.